Okay, so first and foremost, selamat berpuasa, and a very warm welcome to all of you. We were expecting a smaller crowd actually because of the puasa. I'm really happy to see some familiar faces, some new faces, especially the crowd. This is a very welcoming sort of a group of people that we have here, so we are really happy with that. I just want to actually to clarify, this is not actually a revisiting, if I'm correct. This is actually visiting for the first time. Ranjan has produced this work many years ago, 30 years ago, but this is actually the very first time he's actually going to speak about it. He has written extensively about this work, and I would openly admit my early years of getting used to new media art practice and thinking about new media was heavily influenced by Niranjan's writing back in late 90s, early 2000s. So back then his work was very inspirational. I even did my own work out of this as a response in early 2000s. But this has been a sort of a foundational work, I would argue, in Malaysia and even in Southeast Asia in thinking about internet as a medium for art practice. Now, before me handing over to Niranjan, let me briefly, just to give a brief bio of Niranjan. So he is currently with SIAT, which is a School of Interactive Art at Simon Fraser University in Canada. His practice has been recognized in retrospective exhibitions, such as relocations. You can look that up as part of International Symposium of Electronic Art in Isaiah, Singapore, 2018. In Roopesh, Malaysia, another prominent exhibition, National Visual Art Gallery, Kuala Lumpur, and also Intersecting Histories, Design and Media Gallery at NTU, Singapore in 2012. And you can easily look him up. I think there's an extensive written works, and hopefully we will be able to put together all his written books for future publication, something we are looking forward to. It's really an honor for me to have Ranjan with me. I've known him for many years. I'm really excited for this talk. To you, Ranjan. Thank you.
Thank you, Roopesh. And yes, it is in a way correct. I haven't really expounded or explained or revealed some of the workings and the ideas behind this work. It's been exhibited in that period, been around the world with it, but not really gone into the passage towards it and the reasoning within it. So this is an opportunity, thank you, Rahel, for the opportunity to write that essay for the catalog. It allowed me to pick up some pieces left unfinished. In fact, literally writing that was not finished and finish it as if it was written then. If you look at the catalog, you get the sense that it's an older piece, and it is in a way a kind of a fiction. It was started at that time contemporaneously with the showing of this work, but only finished for this catalog. So it's a new piece and an old piece of writing. And this talk kind of unpacks that, gets a bit heavy in the middle, so bear with me. But it's really also the story of my passage through art. And so the question about art is, first of all, what is it? We all have assumptions about it. Some of us work in it, and some of us work with it. Some of us think of it as a market. Others use it to heal themselves. Some nations think of it as kind of social engineering, science systems that unite peoples. It brings us possibilities in the future, platforms for resistance. It represents our traditions and our contemporaneity, or our modernity, or post-modernity, or whatever it is that we're in at the moment. So what is art, and what is my own understanding of art? So I started as an artist late, after passing through economics and law. I did it naively, but with a lot of reading on my own and looking at art on my own. But without an art education. I produced my first body of work in the Southeast Asian, Malaysian context. Expressive work, but with a kind of Nusantara, batik, ikat kind of feel to it. And then, for various reasons, which I won't go into now, moved on to a more conceptual practice. And I got into Goldsmiths College MA program in London, which was quite a feat because I didn't have a first degree in art. You know, really got into what was going on. Goldsmiths was, you know, at its peak. For instance, this piece by Damien Hirst was 1991, The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living. It's one of the most famous, iconic pieces of that period, and you know, it represents not just British art of the 90s, but Goldsmiths College, you know, and that's where I was in '93. And the strange thing is, while I was in the midst of this sort of excitement, and I do get excited, some of you might have noticed last night, I would come home, you know, and, you know, first thing my mom would do normally is go to the temple. And our local temple was the Seafield Sri Maha Mariamman Temple. If you remember the riot there in 2018, you know, that's our local temple, and this is taken on this trip. You know, I'd go with my mom kind of just to keep her happy, but, you know, find that the art and the expression and the depth of symbol and meaning and even the sophistication of the various articulations were far more profound than what we were doing at this heart of British Western art at Goldsmiths College. And I get very confused because, you know, the people that were doing it wouldn't see themselves as artists. They're just priests, and, you know, the dressing of these icons are done by priests, the carvings are done by workmen, and the whole machine, the tradition, maintains the art. Right? It's no individual, no sign, signature, no name. And the symbolism is cosmological, it's profound, it's you know, covers all aspects of life, not just one particular proclivity or interest of one person. So very confused. I mean, obviously I'm not a traditional artist, not trained in anything traditional, so I'm a modern contemporary artist with carrying this confusion. I moved through various phases and found it quite unsatisfactory to be making symbols that were framed by others, curators, critics, dealers. I wanted to make work. Remember, you know, I'm just getting my art education for the first time, entering an institution at the master's level. And you know, I'd wanted to become somebody that could conceptualize and articulate the meanings of the work. So from being more of a painter and an expressionist artist, I moved towards a conceptual / installation type practice. And my final product after 2 years at Goldsmiths College was an installation that was kind of seeking a seamless interplay of material, of space, of light, of text, used photography. To give you an idea, I spent most of my budget on getting that main wall of my space in, this is the Goldsmiths College graduation show, '93, you know, professionally plastered, and I painted like 15 coats of white paint on that, you know, until the chair of the program said, "Isn't it white enough already?" You know, and so it was this creating this space, this light, and there's, you know, a big 4 foot by 6 foot photographic print. There's the text printed on the floor from Junichiro Tanizaki and from the Mathnawi Persian poetry, and so this was the point at which the World Wide Web was coming into being, and you know, I myself was looking for sustenance, work, you know, something to do. Having been slightly disillusioned about the idea of being a practicing artist, I couldn't really see myself making, you know, concerted effort, making a brand, a product line, you know, a series of works. I just were kind of mercurial flashes, and then I'd stop. I reach what I need in a piece, in a medium, and then I'd stop. And I was actually instructed by very, very profound thinkers and leaders of that goldsmiths revolution. Michael Craig Martin is a early conceptual artist and one of the leaders of, you know, of that movement at Goldsmiths. He paid me a studio visit, and he looked at my work, which you know, I had worked really hard and very proud of, and he said, you know, if you keep doing this for the next 5 years, you know, I see you in the Tate, but you don't have it in you to make another one. And he's right, you know, because it's finished. I'm going to do the next one, something else. So I realized that I needed a job, and my mom found that there was a new university in Sarawak, and I said, what? Sarawak? And you know, well, some of my students are here right now, and they're doing really well in the Malaysian art scene. And I think I did really well in those 7-8 years in UNIMAS. I made, you know, the best friendships, collaborated with Hasnul Jamal Saidon, without whom, you know, I wouldn't be here. I hope he feels the same way about his collaboration with me. And did a lot of work that was recognized, and maybe sadly not built upon, Roopesh. You know, like we discussed this a lot. A lot of the problems in the Malaysian art scene is kind of lack of continuity. So people build things and then it gets forgotten, there's no documentation, and you know, I'm also guilty of that, being a Malaysian artist, I guess. I don't preserve my works that well, and the institutions don't preserve the legacy very well, and then new generations come and start again, and you know, who's Niranjan again? Right? That kind of thing. So that's, you know, that's kind of the fact of life here. UNIMAS was founded in '92. In the heart and the heat of Mahathir's IT era, you know, multimedia super corridor, Malaysia was leading the way in Southeast Asia. People would, and UNIMAS was the first university built in the heat of this moment with super infrastructure, internet infrastructure, very international outlook, not a parochial Malay, you know, national university outlook. Our chancellor and vice chancellor were from Semenanjung. They were very global oriented. We were instructed to teach in English, which I found actually didn't work because the students didn't understand anything. But, right, Rachel? I did my lectures in Malay in the end. It was a special time. We would have visitors from Western universities come and be amazed at our infrastructure and our facilities and our faculty, I would say. So it was in this context that I myself learned about computers. I had no interest or awareness. In fact, I had an aversion for computers. Jane actually had to type my master's dissertation for me because I couldn't do it. But I came here and we all had to do it. It was on our desk. And then when I had to do it, I found, whoa, it's easy. It's you know, it was a very interesting moment. And then, of course, people were already working with video, like Hasnul was there working with video. The faculty next door to Seni Gunaan and Creative was the computer science faculty. And it was very interesting, conversations about this saat yang menjelma, something happening, you know, something about globalization. There was a sense of excitement, but also for some of us a sense of threat and a sense of kind of impending tsunami, which now you guys are living in the wake of the rubbish of the tsunami. You guys are, the younger people are now like floating around, or maybe, you know, living on the banks of the new landscape that has been formed after the tsunami. Our old Malaysian cultural paradigm is shifted, and something new, came. And it's happening again, which I'll kind of try to get to at the end of the talk. It's happening again. Something big is going to happen. It's going to bring a similar level of change. But I think the point in terms of my entry into this moment is that I found that all the things that I had been trying to do through installation and conceptual work, working with text, working with image, working with light, working with space, not interested in the material. There's nothing in the middle of my installation. There's no artifact. There's hardly a painting. The dematerialization that I was working with had now become mundane, everyday, platform on my desk, and I'm forced to use it. And I just thought, okay, so why don't I just use it? I have to use it to work in this place. I might as well use it for my art. And then that's the kind of basis on which I started thinking in a way that resulted in this work. This is a copy of the very first website ever. Tim Berners-Lee, whom some of you may have heard of, made the very first website in 1990. He's the pioneer of the www, which basically brought the highly esoteric and elitist internet to our doorstep, to everybody. Right? It made it globalized. It actually was the vehicle that allowed us to have a kind of information paradigm. Globalization became information globalization with the birth of the World Wide Web. And it just grew exponentially, giving us the world that we have today, which I think is breaking under the strain of the force of this expansion, you can say. So this is the very first website ever. And in it, it contained a guide on how to use hypertext, which is the essence of this world, linking one artifact to another, whether be it a textual artifact, image, sound. Right? It is initially mainly text, but it grew very quickly into being a multimedia realm of hypertextuality. And so Tim Berners-Lee basically set up a guide on how to do it, and about web servers, and then continued to link the websites one by one as they emerged. So this was the first website and the first kind of portal, gateway to other websites. Right? It's amazing, amazing moment. And it's only 5 years before, 4 or 5 years before, Mahathir and Malaysia jumped onto it, and 6 years before I also joined in the fray. So this is the homepage of my first web piece that those who have been upstairs would have seen displayed as a kind of a sketch or a shell. There's no work there. People may be confused, like there's nothing going on. Well, there is nothing going on. It's not connected to the internet. It's just almost a sketch to show people who read the essay, what it might have been like. Because the essence of that work is intangible. And I'll get into that slowly as we go along. So this work has been shown, the first time was in IZEA in Rotterdam, International Symposium on Electronic Art in 1996, and various places since then. And the most important, in a way, exhibition that it's been in was curated by Roopesh in Singapore, when Hasnul and me were given a two-man show at IZEA, which as a board member of that organization, I had fought to bring to Asia. It's a very Euro-American circuit that moved to Japan in my time. And then after I left the board, came to Singapore, and Roopesh took the opportunity to give me and Hasnul and the work we did at UNIMAS a kind of spotlight in that exhibition. And this work was rebuilt, right, as a working, not as a model like upstairs, but as a working website for that exhibition. So since then, it's not been shown anywhere, and I don't think it will ever be shown again in a sense of trying to make it work. It's more an idea than anything else. So having kind of built up the story of my passage towards this engagement with the internet and towards creating this artifact, the failure of Marcel Duchamp, Japanese Fetish even. Having kind of given you that story, I now want to get into a little bit of theory, a little bit of kind of difficult stuff in a way. I find it difficult even reading my own work sometimes, and figuring it out for a second time. So let me try and get into this. So one really important distinction between what we might call the modern outlook, or the Western outlook, or the post-Renaissance humanist Enlightenment outlook, and our traditions, our meaning, actually I include Europe before the Renaissance, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, even Chinese who are less religious but have the Tao. All these forms of image making and of art can be distinguished from what emerged in the Renaissance. And the marriage between science, things like optics, mathematics, and aesthetics, and the rise of the human-centered perspective, the rise of the subject. This happens only at that moment, 13th, 14th, 15th century Europe. Maybe the seeds of it were in some parts of the Greek legacy that came through Islam into Europe. But it was new, right? It was new. And the central experiment or moment where all these things come together could arguably be said to be the Brunelleschi experiment, in which in Florence he used the new perspective theory. It basically did an experiment, a scientific experiment. He proved that the single point perspective theory was accurate. So he made a painting of the Florentine Baptistery, which is a building, and which you can still go and see in Florence, on a plane which had a polished mirrored surface, which could then reflect the sky, which was above the baptistery. He made a hole in it for his point of view, for his eye line, and he held a mirror in front of it with another hole in it, so he could line those two holes up and view the baptistery through these planes that he had positioned in the path of his view. And what he could do was move the painting back and forth and find no change in the image, because the perspective theory was accurate. The painting reflected in the painting reflected in facing that way, reflected in the mirror facing this way, right, lined up with what he could see through the hole. So from that moment on, perspective became reality, right? Every European painting or Renaissance painting is built on it, especially the classical period. It's like almost geometric, mathematical precision. And our world today is built on that basis that this is reality, right? Assumptions that we hold, but actually it's reality with one eye looking through a hole and applying maths. It's not the reality of the organic human, concave face structure with two eyes sitting under heaven. No, it's the one eye of the human being located here looking through a hole. That has become reality. And that is the difference between Chinese painting and European painting, or between Islamic geometry, which is founded on Tawheed, or whatever, right? Our traditions are different from what has become the norm since the Renaissance. And here's a quote that kind of articulates the metaphysical, the ontological, the subjectival difference that follows with this technology, right? And it's from Brian Rothman, a book called Signifying Nothing. Each image in this system, this perspectival code, offers the spectator the possibility of objectifying himself or herself, the means of perceiving himself from the outside as a unitary seeing subject. It's kind of the effect of the inside of that, looking at that picture, looking at a Renaissance painting. You have to position yourself in a certain way to experience that picture correctly. And in that process, you get a sense of yourself as a seeing subject because it's directed at your eye. Right? The Chinese painting is not directed at your eye. It's atmospheric, it's vertical perspective. It's just there. It's not directed at you. But the Renaissance painting is directed at you, so your subjectivity rises. The spectator then becomes a receiver of messages which is the painting, whose interpretation requires the active presence of a physically located corporeal individual who has a point of view, literally and metaphorically a point of view. Subjectivity is reinforced in a way that has never been done before, and it fits because they were moving away from the church towards humanist values and ethics and morality and law of man, taking priority over law of God. The confusion for us is we haven't actually moved that far from that position, and yet we apply their visual technologies, their culture, them and us. It's kind of just a heuristic, just a way for me to distinguish between the Renaissance and the tempatan, right? The local confusion. Let's say our culture is kind of confused now because we've got this and we've got that. So, with this in mind, you know, that work is titled The Failure of Marcel Duchamp, Japanese Fetish even. So there's two components, obviously clearly demarcated by the slash. And I've never really talked about Marcel Duchamp. You never explained what is this. And it's really very difficult stuff. And Duchamp is like the most important modern artist of the 20th century. You could say the first postmodern artist, the father of conceptualism, installation, everything that matters to me now in my post-Goldsmiths era, you know, Duchamp is the source of it. And even his attitude of not making much work and not really having a career as an artist and playing chess instead, you know, kind of fits. Like his work was only completed, this piece was only purposely designed to be finished and built after he died. He worked on it for decades, and it was only put up, so he never saw it, right, by others according to his plan. So, yeah, so I was kind of a love-hate relationship with him because he represents everything that comes from the Western tradition. So, which I'm now, you know, at this moment in my own history, savagely critiquing, right? And yet, this is my kind of idol in art, my touchstone. So it's a tribute to Duchamp, but it's also a critique of Western art at the same time. You know, there's an idea here that the Renaissance perspectival code had initiated the confusion of the seeing eye and the subjective eye, merging the two. And Duchamp kind of marks the culmination of this trajectory. He makes it evident, and he makes us understand it in some way. If you experience this work and read, you have to read about it, I'm sure. You can't just get it. It's a long, lifelong work to kind of figure it out. But I think he himself is critical of this trajectory. That's my view. So now we come from a visual paradigm to a linguistic one to try to understand what Duchamp is doing in this piece. So I'm now shifting, I'm not talking about my work anymore, I'm talking about Duchamp and étant donné, which means given. It's a long title. And the meaning of this work is not clear, although there's so much written about it. And I'm trying to really explain what part of this work may be relevant to what I did. So first of all, I'm going into his work without any reference to my own. And what Duchamp does is that he builds this diorama behind a door, and gives you 2 peepholes which you place your eye in to see. And by doing this, he fixes your body. Remember that body that you have to place in the right place to get the position. He fixes you there. He holds you tight in that position. So you look in, you lose your ability to get parallax over the diorama. So the 3-dimensionality is reduced to the 3-dimensionality that is inherent in your stereoscopic biocular vision, because you have a natural parallax within that, right? Because the 2 eyes are 2 points of view overlapping. So you have a little bit of a sense of dimensionality, but it's not like if you can do that, you say, archa, right? You know? But if you don't have that, it's kind of softer, like putting on looking at a stereoscopic photograph. And he produces an immobility in you and your subjecthood, and he holds you in place by his construction of the view, and he turns the visual into a state of visuality. Right? Now, to understand this, we have to look at a little bit of linguistics and Peirce, and the idea of a hypostatic abstraction. This is like something I don't fully understand myself, so I'm not going to pretend that I do. I'm just going to try and tell you what I think it means. It consists of making a subject into a predicate. So in a sentence, normally there's a subject and a predicate, and I guess the sentence would be focused on the subject in relation to the predicate. A hypostatic abstraction turns the predicate into another subject. So the relationship between the subject and the predicate becomes the relationship between 2 equal subjects. So this is like crazy. I'm not going to dwell on it. We can talk about it later if we want to try to understand it together. But in this linguistic maneuver, the predicate is abstracted into a second subject, and Duchamp, in my view, seems to perform this kind of linguistic maneuver visually through his installation. So he turns looking into the state of looking. So the visual into visuality, because you're caught in this position, and you know, just to repeat, to use Peirce's words, a paraphrase of Peirce, in a hypostatic abstraction, a relationship is created between an original subject and a new subject, as the predicate or property of the subject, of the original subject, is transformed or abstracted into a second subject. So, to return to linguistic terms, the nude is visible, becomes the nude has visuality. Right? If you think of that, those two, I mean, it takes a long time to really get into it. Just feel it through. Visuality is now a subject along with the nude. Right? So Duchamp does that. And I think it reveals the nature of perspective. It reveals a lot of things about seeing and being as well. So I'm going to do something quite naughty, which it kind of, I wouldn't do it with my own work, but I'm doing it to Duchamp. I'm showing you his secret. If you haven't seen this, this is what is inside. This is my own camera, my Samsung camera going through one of the eye holes into the scene. That's what's behind the wall. The peephole lets you see it. And you know, there's a sense of domination, twofold domination. One is he has dominated your body and made you bend a little bit, put your head there. You can't move. If you want to see, you have to stay there. You can't do this, you can't do that. You have to stay there. And the blatancy of the image also grips you, right? So you're caught, you're just caught in this state, this hypostatic state of visuality, this abstraction, you know, of both the perspective eye and the subjective eye. And I think he brings an awareness of the whole legacy of the Renaissance and all of that into this work. And people have written about it. I haven't read that much of it, but this is my own instinct of this work. And it kind of has a bearing on my internet piece. So, leaving Duchamp aside, return to the difference now between the Western and the Eastern perspective, or the Renaissance and the pre-Renaissance, post and pre-Renaissance perspective. In the traditional point of view, I'm watching the time, I think I'm doing okay. In the traditional point of view, the likeness between anything and any visual image of it, a representation, is analogical. This is very interesting, and we can talk about shire here. Right? This is something about ways of representing things. So idolatry. What is idolatry? Idolatry is when the symbol becomes the thing represented. Right? And I think what a lot of simple-minded Muslims don't understand is that Hindu icons actually agree that there is such a thing as shire. No Hindu really sees the icon as the thing represented. The icon is a symbol that is a likeness. Just like ayat, just like huruf, this is a visual symbol. It's a likeness of something being represented, right? So the difference between all these views, whether it's the Chinese horse galloping, or the mist in the waterfall, or whether it's the Hindu icon, or whether it's the more abstracted Islamic geometry representing Tawheed, whatever it is analogical representation. And the similitude, the way one thing is similar to another, is in the sense of a simile, again returning to language. Something is like something else, and not that of a simulacrum, which means the thing in front of you is real. That is shirk. That is it. That is considered wrong in Islam. And actually, it's not happening in the Hindu temple. It's not happening in the Hindu temple either, even though the icon is standing there, the idol is standing there. Right? So the universal view before the West is against shirk. And the West is different. We have this sort of sense of creating a reality through the representation, the realism. The thing present almost actually becomes it. And now in the world of 3D, and you have it coming in on your Facebook stream, it's effing amazing. It looks real. It really is. So these are the simulacra. The end point of the problem that we're talking about is coming to get us in another level now. And I think we should turn to our religious teachings, because there's something there that clarifies the problem. Right? The problem. So back to my interest in these these are the planets, actually. Actually, they're not planets. They are how can you put it? The cosmic entities. It's the sun, the moon, Mars, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, and two nodes, the northern node and southern node, which are not entities, not physical planets. Rahu and Ketu are points of conjunction. So what's being represented here is not even like things. Yes, Mars is a thing, it's got a god, but Rahu and Ketu are nodes. They also have a representation. So clearly, this is a very complex system, a different ontology, a different categorization of things, way of looking at things. And this is in every Hindu temple, you have this. It's the representation of the workings of the cosmos, I guess. So now, the Japanese fetish even. And anyway, we've already had our taste of it through Duchamp, right? He's caught us with that absolutely necessary image, or the image that's impossible to take your eyes away from both literally and metaphorically in his installation, physically and optically. So, I guess, just to be a little bit quick, Frederick Jameson suggests, and he's a postmodern theorist, very kind of the most important one in some ways, or the most famous one in some ways. The visual is essentially pornographic. He's talking about cinema, right? But we can talk about photography. The visual is essentially pornographic, as it has its end in rapt, mindless fascination. You know, looking. What are you looking at? You know, looking, right? So if the visual is pornographic, what is actual pornography? So pornography is the realization or potentiation of films, because he's talking about films, invitation to stare at the world as though it were a naked body. So looking is already halfway there. Looking at media is 3/4 of the way there. And pornography is where you're going anyway, right? It's the end point of looking theory, right, Jameson, and kind of fits with what Duchamp is doing as well. Another kind of more humorous and but very instructive model of this is by a theorist called Rajah, who's writing about a photographer's work in this instance. But she has described pornography as an art of autonomous figurative modeling where an amount of liquid is continuously poured back and forth from one pail into another, right? Pornography, right? There's this bodily contact, there's this figurative modeling, but the metaphor is pail and liquid. And the funny part is this: once in a while, for the sake of the camera, a bit is purposely spilled, right? I mean, if you've seen pornography, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, then you don't need to know anymore. So there's this idea of the spillage, and then there's the other idea of the hypostatization, the extension, the suspension, the abstraction, which is like delay, right? Delay. Like Mahathir says, well, how you so healthy, so living so long? His mother told him to, and I think it's in your religious teachings too, stop eating before you're full. Right? There's something like that involved here. Duchamp is like Mahathir. So, one of my heroes, both of my heroes, for what it's worth, he's 99, man, still talking nonsense. So the idea of retention and release, narrative, the narrative arc, denouement, climax, release, it's in every structure. It's in life itself is we wait for the release at the end. Duchamp has consolidated this kind of understanding into an aesthetics of delay. It's his term, delay, and the hypothesization of visual to visuality and so on, are kind of analogous to this problem of the pornographic image, the spillage for the camera. So what does Duchamp do with the delay? Here's a quote from him, from one of the notes in his green box, which articulates the meaning, tangentially, the meaning of the famous, well, just show the next slide, the large glass, right? This is another very famous Duchamp piece. Use delay instead of picture or painting in language. A lot of this is to do with language. So instead of saying picture, say delay. I came to see the picture. No, I came to see the delay, the Duchamp delay, right? That's what he means. Picture on glass becomes delay in glass. Oh, very nice delay in glass. How did you make that delay? What's your technique? That's what he's saying, right? So what he's doing, and I won't read the whole thing, he's dealing with the time of viewing being the condition that we are engaged in being the focus of his artifact. Again, it's a hypostatization. Don't look at the picture, be looking at the picture. And he calls that delay. That's his concept. Right? And this is the famous bride stripped bare by her bachelors even. And, you could say that the suspension, the glass, the way of looking at it from both sides, it doesn't end, and the thing broke, the glass cracked on transit, and he left it like that. He didn't remake it. He's quite happy with it, and so on. It's like unfinished in many ways. The delay, the hypostatization is like ongoing. So there is a kind of suspension of desire in Duchamp. There is also the kind of the cornucopia of visuality that comes with Western culture. Our cultures are all much more restrained in different ways in terms of visuality. And these two conditions are what I call, using Duchamp's étant donné, given. This was the given of 1995. The internet, the www, brought this cornucopia of visuality to your desktop, and also inadvertently brought you Duchamp's delay, because the bandwidth was small, and whatever that thing you wanted to look at took minutes to download. I don't know, you guys are too young, maybe most of you, to remember that, but it took a long time, especially if you're on dial-up, for a picture to fall down onto your screen. Right? So you had the cornucopia, you also had the delay. Right? That was not esoteric artwork, right? It's just like a fact of everybody's life. The www did that in those days. So this is a thing that I call chronoplasty. I think I kind of coined it, but then I looked up on the internet and it was there also. The plasticity of time. It's kind of like Salvador Dali's painting, right? That watch. That plasticity of time was a day-to-day experience on the internet. The bandwidth get bigger, the image file get bigger, slow again. The bandwidth get bigger, the image drop faster. Next time people put bigger picture already, because bandwidth bigger, but slow again, right? This kind of plasticity. And it's still going on, like 4K. 4K, but what's coming next? You're going to send a car down the pipe or what? Yes, 3D printing coming. Maybe they can send the aeroplane down the pipe to your printer. Why not? Just takes energy, what? We got plenty, right? And cheap also, especially when anyway, let's not get into that. Okay, so at this time, right, like we're talking about first commercial modem introduced in 1962 by AT&T, had a download speed of 300 bits per second. By 1994, the internet is long before the World Wide Web, right? Let's not forget that. 1960 to 1994, speeds had reached 2.8 kilobits per second, right? 28,000 bits per second. This is nothing to us now. But this was what it was in 94. This is what we were working with, right, in that era. And so my work was built in this context, with these kinds of references, with this kind of agenda, if you like, to unpack this ontological aspect of what is the image in this new medium, and then also interested in what are the implications, geopolitical, social, cultural implications. So the presentation is in the form or representation of an album. It's actually our wedding album. I took out the wedding photos and put the Duchamp picture in there. And the pages turn. So you open the album cover. It takes time, right? Not like this. It takes time. And then you come to the tissue, the page with the tissue there, that old kind of album. And then, it's a slow download. right? It's a slow download because of all the aforesaid bits. And in 1998, the work was in 96, the modem speed already 56K. My work finished already. Right. If I wanted to, I could have put bigger images to slow it down again, but it's not my style to keep things like it's done, it's finished. So what you're seeing up here has no sense of the work. It's just the structure of the work. The work is about time. Right? And for that, you have to understand and read my essay or listen to this talk and imagine, because it's lost. It's a transient piece. It's a quality of new media work, actually. It's gone. So turn the next page, and you get the main photograph of the work, which is actually based on a performance done, I think, in '93 at the Philadelphia Museum of Art, where the Duchamp Etendonnes is. And it was done with no idea that I didn't even know about the internet, then. It's just done as a performance piece and a photographic event without much idea of how and what. It just had to be done. It was an imperative. I was working with found objects, and I was using the urinal, Duchamp's urinal, as a kind of critique and a tribute. And I was going to New York, just holiday with Jane, and I found a bedpan, plastic medical bedpan, and I took it and I put it in my coat. I did a performance on the site, and this is not a digital photograph construction. It actually is a photograph taken by my wife Jane, on our holiday camera at the site when the guards weren't looking, kind of thing. Right? Fingers in the eye holes, say no need to look, it's not for us. And Duchamp bedpan. And so when I came to make so this performative dimension has persisted in my work. Some of you may know my piece in the Balai, which keeps getting shown occasionally when Balai has a show about media, Telinga Keling, and then my work with the Cowboy Project, which got a good viewing at the Singapore Biennale in 2017. So the performance stream continues, but at this first moment, it becomes the internet work. And this image becomes the center of it. And the Japanese fetish, well, it's just a little small image from a bondage site, Japanese website, mixed in to the final image. When you open the door, you see that image, right? So the work could not be located on a Malaysian server. I mean, I could, nobody would know, but then my work is not like that, right? In principle, it could not be located. If I tell the service provider, no, cannot. So I tried it. I tried it in Kuching with my friend who had an internet business. Says, no way, Niranjan, cannot. I wouldn't do it. Small only what? No, I cannot. But if I didn't tell, he probably wouldn't have known, right? So it was like that. It's just about the clarity of this, marking the situation, so cannot. So the strategy to deal with this was to put it on a server in Germany, an art school in Germany, that part of the image that was not acceptable here. The rest of the site was here, and then remix the site, the geography, trans-geographical unity of the website. I mean, that was just the first version. Later, for ease, I moved everything to Germany. Put it there. It's too difficult to maintain two sites. So the version that was mainly known was the whole site was in Germany. But the concept anyway was that it was in two separate places. And the hyperlink, the hypertext that Berners-Lee was teaching us about, I used it in a big way, and it kind of becomes the basis of the work. You engage in a kind of trans-geographical navigation without knowing it. There's another very famous web piece, I forget the artist's name, Russian artist, well before mine, where you click on an image and it doesn't change, but if you look carefully at the thing, every time you click, it's from a different country. Because, that was, so people were thinking about this idea of here and there, right, on the internet. It's very different from before the internet, here and there. So this is how I broke up the image to achieve that image that you saw before was actually so many different images that downloaded at their own time. They had their own space. It was Navigator 2.0, Netscape Navigator, and it had certain capabilities. And anyway, that's another technical story. But two of these are hot hyperlinks. 2 or 3 of these are hotspots that take you to other pages. Right? So that's how the work was designed. Yeah, actually, interesting. There's not only the slow download, but also the separation and coming together of the image, piece by piece. It's actually what happens to the very packets that make up any image. Even if I didn't cut it up like this, they all go on the internet separately and then turn up. You know, they all find their own way and turn up to make the complete data, right? So this is kind of articulating that. And of course, the legacy of Ismail Zain's digital collage, you know, was in my mind extending it. Very important to me and to Hasnul that anything we do is set within Malaysian art history, that we mark our precedents, we respect our elders. Please, don't forget, respect your elders. And you know, it's better for you. You can drive your father's car, Doana, and go and buy your own car. Mercedes, ma. Mercedes. Right? You don't know about Ismail Zain and you're making media work? Come on, lah. Something like that, right? So that was part of Hasnul and my project, some of which is actually in the show, the eArt ASEAN, Hasnul and me, first Malaysian electronic art show. It's another thing we did on this kind of principle of marking the history and paying tribute. And you know, Roopesh certainly did that. He basically stood on our shoulders and reached very much higher than us. And yeah, no, doing pretty good. Doing pretty good as far as I can tell. Yeah, so it was a remix, right? And your passage through this, if you click on that bedpan, you go somewhere else. If you click on the door, which is knocking on the door metaphorically, you go into the site, but it's preceded by this warning addressing you as a Malaysian here, right? Your country can or not? You can go or not? Of course, everybody can go because nobody's going to stop you. This is the price that Mahathir paid, that Anwar and everybody else took advantage of in the Reformasi moment, because he opened the internet, only the opposition took it. Haraka, everybody was better at internet than UMNO and Barisan, right? And they used it, right? So anyway, we were also playing with this as artists, and then you go to open the door only, you go to that page. For modesty's sake, I cover lah. Yeah, berhijab. Okay, so metaphysics. One of the concerns of this work is ontology, what is, space and time. Here is where? Here is here is there on the internet. And then time, the download time, that chronoplasticity, that experience. So there's a metaphysical dimension to this work and the geopolitics of it. So it's not just the geopolitics of it, but it's kind of a geopolitics, because offshore servers became the basis of one of the pioneers. Also, like my work was 96, pioneer Malaysian journalist MGG Pillai, very much like opposition type journalist. He set his listserv Sangkanchil offshore, cannot be touched by anybody here, right? Also 96, so I'm very proud to say that I'm in the same year as him. And the Reformasi 1998, Anwar Online website, also offshore, right? And Malaysia Kini, not offshore lah, but they started in 1998, Malaysia Kini. So I was up there with this piece, and Unimas was up there. And just as a note, when INET, which is the conference of the body that issues IP addresses, right? INET, the internet, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they had an annual conference, And they came to Malaysia in 1997. Mahathir's Multimedia Super Corridor, everything canggih in Malaysia, they're coming here. Right? All the speakers, no Malaysians except, and I'm saying that proudly, not just for myself, but for art and for Unimas. We were there. We were there, right? And of course, we didn't build on it. We haven't, as well, we have. We could have had more, put it that way. Yeah. So the warning moment on that browsing of the web page actually marks a boundary that's being battered or broken down at that moment, right? When I did this web work, just before Mahathir opened up, Malaysia opened up internet, when you get Time magazine, Heineken ad with the girl with the bikini walking small on the beach, they've got black ink, black ink on the top and the bottom. Censored. Cannot see. You want to get pornography, how? In school, we got coming around the classroom, but not easy. Not easy. Today, there's no difference between one type of image and another in terms of accessibility. It's up to you. It's very hard to resist, actually. It's coming at you. Not just pornography, but everything is coming at you. News, false news, sales, your favorite camera brand, it's all coming at you, right? So this was a moment when that boundary was being broken, and I kind of was intuitively marking it with this piece. So to finish, Lev Manovich, The Language of New Media, marks the rise of the internet as the beginning of the era in which media production and storage and distribution and playback, dissemination, all on one platform. Right? And beyond that, it is the dawning of a new language at a substrata level where all the different multimedia are being articulated at the level of code. So, and of course, computers were doing it, but now globally accessible. Right? So this was a moment. The WWW is a big moment, more significant than the birth of the internet, because it made it global. It made it accessible, and we put our data online. And so Manovich says that. And today, we are at another moment when all that data that we put online is owned by people and is being mined and articulated and operationalized at a high degree of efficiency by artificial intelligence and being sent back to us through the same medium. Remember, the production, distribution is all on the same platform. And it's no longer a question of information, it's a question of knowledge. We're at the cusp of another massive revolution, much bigger than what the WWW was, with much more metaphysical, ontological, moral, ethical, geopolitical consequences than we can even imagine. And I'm hoping to see some interesting artwork coming from that. Not from me, old people already. The young people have to do it. And then, thank you so much for ILHAM for having me, Rahel, Chito for Raspberry Pi. That's the basis on which that work is revived on the desktop over there. Siaza, thank you. Roopesh, thank you so much, not just for today, what you're going to do in a few minutes, but what you have done to keep this work going, relocations and so on. And the audience for coming here, some of you very hungry and ready to go for Buka Puasa, I'm sure. And to Jane, who took both the photo in 1993 and the one in 1995. Thank you, everyone.
So, Is it on? Hello, hello. Superb, superb. Thank you so much, Ranjan. This was amazing. I'm really happy to hear this, and I'm really happy that it's finally reaching to our Malaysian audience. Um, I want to quickly, just to add on a bit of my experience. There's a lot of people, younger people nowadays, come up and they want to know about history of media art practice. And when I ask them, right, where do you look for information, they say on Google, right, on ResearchGate, and all this, or on academia, or some even look up on LinkedIn. Maybe there's some articles there. And I want to take this opportunity to say, like, some of most valuable, precious readings and information that I got are going back to libraries, some of the publications that were done prior and even at the moments when this was being created in the 90s. So back then there wasn't information, there wasn't website that actually puts up all this sort of information. It was literally publications, old school books that were used as references. And those are the books that was very, very much important sort of materials that informed to my understanding and the sort of practices that came prior to the emerging of internet and what we have today. So just to start off a bit of discussion before I open up to the audiences. So I wanted to know your perspective on this, especially in terms of accessibility. There's a sort of impression, especially when I talk to people about your work, there are two levels of accessibility. Number one is the sort of the density in terms of thinking and the sort of theoretical discussion that goes behind the work, right? That is, it does not translate or accessible to audience. That's one of the hurdles of people have in thinking about your work. That's one. And then secondly, also in terms of accessibility to your work, right? The work is not up anymore. We don't know what came after this, what sort of information that's there available. Literally, some of us have to go back to time machine to look up this work, and even there, it's not there. I have a copy saved for myself, of course, for my own reference, but there's also this lack of accessibility, as you have said, right? It's created for a particular moment in time, and things have moved on. So how do you actually try to communicate this, try to enable this so that it could reach out to more audiences?
Yeah, I guess you're touching on a couple of things here by that question. Partly, it's a character flaw. Not taking care of things that, once it's done, it's done. And we teach all our students to create portfolio and everything, but then you don't do it yourself. Okay, partly it's that, but partly, and more importantly, I really believe that these things are in the moment. You do your sand mandala, then you want to put glue and stick it. Wash line in the river, let it go. So there's a part of me that's that. Again, if you remember my idea of art, right? The problem with Damien Hirst's shark in a tank versus the celestial representation in the Hindu temple. So there's a little bit of both of those things. Of course, I want my art to be remembered, and I want to sell a few pieces, and then I should do certain things, and I'm not doing, yes. But on the other hand, I don't want to fix this work up and simulate the download delay. It's finished. It's over. There is a residue. If anybody wants to buy, the prints are for sale. It's the only existing print done contemporaneously. It's dated. There's 4 sets of prints. And that's the work now. That's what's left. So, finding a skeleton of a prince, Tutankhamun. You can't, you can 3D model him or what lah, no need lah. You can, but you can buy the sarcophagus, keep it. So there's that. But I think the opportunity given by ILHAM to do this paper, and this talk, which is going to be recorded, is exactly what you're talking about, right? So now, if people don't know, you can't blame me anymore. You have to say, why don't you go to the ILHAM website and listen to Niranjan's talk before you make your internet work or your AI work? So yeah, a bit of both.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think I saw a hands up here, please.
Yeah, I think in the end that is very true what you're saying. Don't you also believe that once it's done, like you said, once you have, no, I think it's, I don't want. Can you all under, can you? Yeah, hi, my name is Susanne and I, is it on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm an architect and I live in Malaysia since 1993. But I agree with you, I mean, like you said, it's a character thing, one, but you said, once it's done, it's done. But are you not also agreeing, once it's done, it has its own life, you know? And I don't think we should make the artist responsible what will happen after that. I mean, it's similar to architecture, a bit, yeah? Because I'm also creating buildings. Once it's done, you know? And then we will see, you know, if, so in his respect, why are there not more students who maybe study his work, write about it, or like ILHAM, I mean, you are doing now an exhibition, and I think that's great. And I believe you have done, or you're doing exhibition in Germany, there will be catalogs there. I mean, of course, it's a bit more effort, but I believe it will stay its time and will have its own life, and other people are responsible to interact with it or interpret it in their own ways.
Yes. No, I think you're right, but I think there's a little bit of danger of the architect and the engineer not building the work properly.
Okay, I mean, that is a different thing.
Yeah, so in a way, the kind of archival dimension of new media is kind of the artist's responsibility too, which maybe I haven't taken on board. And then, of course, Roopesh is asking the question, but in a way, he's responsible for bringing this work back, you know, and putting it, actually building it up together again for relocation. So in a way, you know exactly, he's doing exactly what you said. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the reason I'm asking is there's a lot of questioning, right? But it also, you need to take effort to actually go and seek out and to make yourself, to reach out and to get these kind of materials. It's not readily available. Although it is an internet piece, right? It's not available on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, what's really nice is if you go to the Internet Archive, you see the dregs of it, naturally preserved by the media itself. Time Machine has the structure of it, some images are missing. There's a second piece I did after this, which is a little bit preserved with more images. And in a way, it's enough. It's like, you know, we went to Angkor and Borobudur. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect to be true. In fact, it's more true when it's in a broken down state and not cleaned up and not have artificial, like replacement blocks put in every, you know, 3/4 of the spaces. So in a way, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I do believe you're right that it should, everybody should make the effort, including me. And I know you're digging here at me, but at the same time, there's something to be said of, you know, like Duchamp, leaving things be,
right?
And strategic. Of course, there's some strategic thinking about a career, about a life in art, right? So I'm not devoid of ambition or a fantasy about the legacy I'm, you know, building. But I think my way is to just leave it a bit, let other people pick it up, and, you know, and I think it's working. It's working a little bit.
Yeah. Any questions? Shall I continue? Any other questions?
Yes.
No? Yes, please. There, go over there. A gentleman over there.
Thank you very. Is this on?
Yes, yes.
First of all, thank you very much. It was brilliant. So I want to take you back to your comments on Duchamp and the idea that he sort of brought the Renaissance to an end, right? So if the Renaissance represents then a new position, but now what I'm understanding is that's the old position. That's the old position.
Let's say again that
the Renaissance, then if we look at what Duchamp put a punctuation point on, is the old position.
Yes.
So, and what you you're looking at now is through critique of that, the emergence of new positions.
Absolutely.
Is that right? Can you say a little bit more
Yes,
about
thank
that?
you so much. What a wonderful question. So there is a position, and it's been marked, and it's something that I have picked up. It's terminology picked up. It's been used by others, but a colleague of mine in India wrote a PhD on the history of science at the Philadelphia Museum. In fact, I met him for the first time while doing the intervention. Used the term post-traditional, right? And it's used by others in different contexts. And from him, I picked it up, and I've written on that term. And it's the idea that, you know, we are living not in a modern or postmodern paradigm, but one in which the idea of tradition, just the way the idea of the modern dissolved or morphed into the postmodern when modernity was no longer sustainable, the idea of tradition has moved on to post-tradition, where the old idea of my tradition is the only tradition and the rest of the world doesn't exist, cannot sustain itself. But nevertheless, tradition persists and is a valid and valuable, and in my personal view, essential lens for post-colonial societies to construct their cultures. So there is, absolutely right. I mean, there is another paradigm, and I've written a little about it, and you know, it's actually maybe like stillborn, because now we are at this new AI moment where, you know, the thing that didn't happen was like the next thing after postmodernism. It didn't happen, and now we are in a new era. It's like a new epoch, and we really don't know what's happening actually. So I don't know. I continue to sell my wares, but I think the times have changed. Yeah, but it's absolutely correct. There wouldn't have been a point in attaining this understanding if one didn't then develop an alternative or an argument. And I have, and it's published, and there's stuff out there. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I saw another hands up there. Just a gentleman over there. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize because I didn't get to listen to the first half. But towards the end, I understand that you're using a lot of words like abstraction, geography, and a lot of that. And I think you touched on postmodernism, which to some degree I disagree with your position, because I feel that with postmodernism, we take art or learning and knowledge as if you can start your knowledge or your perspective from any point. Whereas I believe that traditionally, we have to look back at history, and I think knowledge is incremental. You have to start from point A and then you get to point B. Postmodernism, for me, I just want your opinion about this whole thing about how we look at ourselves, and that's why in a lot of education systems, there's no need for you to look at art history. You don't need to know your history actually. You almost start design and you start teaching people about architecture from any point you wish to take, and that's postmodernism. I think the modern idea is quite confusing, because that's why people have a lot of anxiety, because there's not a need or an urgency to say, okay, there's a beginning, yeah, and then there's the middle, and then at the end. So I think I'd like an opinion from you on this.
Yeah, it's a very good, difficult point. I understand your perspective and the validity and the sort of the liberation that brings, that you're not bound by this chain of command of history, right? You're not bound to your place. You can start somewhere else and look at it a different way. And the problem with that is who built that, or what premises enabled that paradigm, and what values are furthered by that paradigm. Now, we could have different views on this, of course, but my view is that postmodernism is just the Rococo of the Baroque of modernism. It's the same trajectory that comes from humanism, Renaissance, Enlightenment, Romanticism, modernism, postmodernism. It's the same flow. It's not a break. That's not me. There's many theories. It's not a break. It's just a more florid aspect, berbunga-bunga. Right? So it looks like it's all over the place, but it's the same flow, and it allows this sense of freedom, break from your father's house. Right? Yeah, good. But whose house you living in now? That's the question. I can't answer, but I don't think it's like you're free. Right? And I think that maybe to reveal my perspective, I'm a little bit of, well, obviously a traditionalist, a bit of a nationalist, most importantly, kind of a regionalist. So even in architecture, you have, what's it called, Ismail? Critical regionalism. Right? So why not? Right? So to have that critical regionalism, you have to have the history of the region. You have to visit Borobudur and Angkor and whatnot, and you have to distinguish between that and Chidambaram and Khujaro, and you have to then build your narrative on that history. So yes and no. So we are breaking from the historiography of the kind of Orientalist, the Indo-centric perspective or the China-centric perspective, and building one here. So postmodern, historiographically deconstructive in that sense. Deconstruction is so useful. But then what? Then build something here. Right? Otherwise you just floating in that big wave that is coming from over there, in my view.
Excellent. Any other question, anything, suggestion, comments? Great. So just to pick up on that discussion, I think that's excellent sideway. So it seems like this sort of ideas of local seems kind of a crucial component in your practice. Could you elaborate a bit on that? Like, why do you think it's important, especially to rebuild the house, right? As you using your metaphor.
Yeah. I mean, why objectively it's hard to say, but maybe subjectively, like my own feelings about this is it's like identifying a place from which to stand, right? Identifying a place from which to leave and return, as opposed to just being wherever you can be. So there's a sense in which I think I want a kampong. I want where's my kampong? I want to know where's balik. Balik kampong is to where? That one, that's the reason that we need to identify where is the kampong. Otherwise, you can diaspora. My people have been moving from Jaffna to here. Now my wife is English. My kids are born in Sarawak, living in Canada. One is angry with me why I never teach Tamil. The other one says, don't call me Tamil, don't call me English, don't call me Canadian, I'm just a human being. So, okay. But for me, Kuala Lumpur is my kampong.
Kuala Lumpur is always the kampong. Just to return back to the work itself. So the work, obviously, it seems like the delay seems like an important component to the work. And what we have now is we have less and less delay, right? We want immediacy, and also our attention span is getting smaller and smaller. So I wanted to know, like, since you have seen this sort of progression of internet, especially in the growth of the internet speed, and also the capacity of the internet in delivering information. So I wanted to know about your opinion on this, like, since you have seen this for the past 30 years and the sort of changes that it has gone through. your thoughts on this.
Yeah, in a way, I feel like I left behind in terms of the aesthetic and the sensibility of it, right? And yet I'm in it because I'm on Facebook and a few of the platforms. I use it for my work. I teach on that platform. I teach in a School of Interactive Art and Technology in Canada, in Vancouver, and we're really high tech. And I'm not really high tech. I never was. Even when I made this work, I was kind of just a thinker, conceptualist, really, and working with a lot of help to get it done, right? So for me, that the speed is one aspect, right? But what is, maybe if you don't mind my shifting a little bit, what is more significant than the speed is the marshalling of the internet by the forces of mammon, right? This is the problem, that when it opened, it was the agora, it was the ability to communicate, to broadcast. It was such a short-lived moment, but when the www opened up, everybody was a publisher now, and Malaysia kini, MGG pula, even locally, even Haraka, Reformasi, wow, But in the end, or not in the end, very quickly, they're using 4K to broadcast MGM. That's the use of the internet. And then the other use that we didn't understand is the extraction of our data. And that is an asset. Your identity is an asset that you gave away when you were worried about, faster download, right? And now we see, you wonder whether they had a plan all along, or whether they also innocently stumbled across this asset. I doubt it very much that they're that innocent. Right. At least halfway along the way, they knew what was going on, And so I think one of the interesting facts is, because China put out the firewall for other reasons, they might be the only nation in the world with their own data pool, independent of what is, global, owned by the big shots in America, or whoever they are. So the speed is one thing. I think it just accelerates the extraction and accelerates the insemination of our consciousness with whatever it is that whoever manages to ride this tiger wants to push at us. Now, conspiracy theory will say it's like, so and so and so and so. I don't know, but I know that I'm being pushed at. I feel it, I fall for it, I resist it, but it's different from before. A nice example, nice example about how it happened is, the search engines, right? So in the beginning, if you put a word like bitch, an image, you get a dog, right? And it's just wide open. Yeah. There's no intelligence there. Now, you put the word bitch, and if you get S&M, that's because of your previous search. Right? So it's being tailored to you, and that is the thing that is now been amplified by AI. Right? So now what? Now what? So yeah.
Yeah. Along the same line, also at that moment when you were creating this work, it seems like we had choice. We have a choice, especially the delay, and also the sort of a deliberate sort of conscious attempt to click and see. Yeah. And now it seems like we have lost that choice, and it seems like we do not have any agency on the internet.
That's a nice one,
yeah, so that is also something that I was wondering what you were thinking, because in your work, it seems the agency of the spectator, the audience, plays a crucial role. And this has significantly shifted now with the way we experience the web. So,
really good. So the idea of that work is kind of innocent in a way when I put the warning, right? Like, this work is not just meant for internet viewing. It was an installation, right, in the physical space in Malaysia, in a public space, right? So remember at that time, we just come out of the black mark over your Time magazine, the alcohol ad, because the girl is like wearing a bikini, right? So I didn't know what would happen. Like would people in the gallery click on the warning, see the warning, and then, okay, go to the bedpan then if you don't want to go knock on the door. Nobody, no, not a single person. Like, whoa, wow, everybody, young people, old people, just straight in, no worries, right? So if they would do that in public, then that's what even more so at home, right? Right. So I forget the impetus of the question.
The question of agency, right?
Yes. So agency. So I was thinking I was giving people a considered choice, but there's something about the fact of the internet is that you go, right? You go in. So that thing has been amplified a lot now, and they're now more instrumental in what is being offered to you as places to go. It's tailored for you, for somebody to deliver or extract something from you. So it's especially evident and worrisome in politics, but it's in any level of consumption, it's there.
Right. And also, quickly to follow up on that, a lot of new laws that we think about in regulating the internet is based on this sort of, losing of agency, right? So internet becomes easily accessible to any age group, whether it's appropriate or not. And we have a lot of rules and regulations that's being formulated now to somehow regulate and also control, quote unquote, in terms of the sort of accessibility that one gets. So it becomes a sort of an important conversation around regulating and providing accessibility, appropriate content to people. So I, in a way that I was thinking about this work along the same line, and in a way it predates the sort of laws that we have now, which is still highly debatable. People still question the sort of regulations that limits access or brings down certain websites for certain content. How is that regulated and whatnot? So again, that is also another sort of question that I had for you in terms of what do you think about these sort of laws and regulations that are being introduced in order to regulate the internet now?
Yeah, I think that, what do they say, the horse has already bolted or whatever from the stable, or you're trying to build buns when the tsunami is coming, something like that. It's like, yes, we can have the laws. I mean, you have to be like China. And even there, my students tell me, nah, there's no restriction really. They all can get past it. The thing is that if somebody wants to come for you, they have the means to come for you, right? So that's a deterrent. But a general mass of people, you can't restrict them. That's the nature and structure of the internet. So, and yes, the children or the whatever it is that you don't want X or you think X shouldn't see Y, I think it's necessary to try to manage that and not assume that free flow is the only way, but I don't think it's realistically achievable in any way. But then again, technology like Spy versus Spy, right? Mad Magazine. So you have your encryption. If somebody is trying to get your data, you build the encryption. So it's about. I mean, this is what I'm a bit of a what's that word? Luddite, in a school of technology. Like in my peers, like for instance, we have a debate in CIAT, a discussion with AI and assignments, writing tools and assignments. Like at an undergraduate level, the ChatGPT can do the job. First year level, it can do the job. And it's doing the job. And then what do? Use AI to determine whether they are using AI? No, it's not a joke. It's like what we're doing. What we're doing. I mean, yeah, I know, it's just like, and so for me, the answer would be, okay, stop all this exam, have Viva. Like, it's like a cottage, education becomes a cottage industry. You know something, you come and tell me in front of the examiner, talk to me about it, right? But my peers say, no, let them use it. You're gonna retard the whole system. Use it, but we have to be able to manage it and know if, it's like you got the calculator and you say, tell people you must use the abacus, come on lah. That's what they say, right? But I think we've reached a point where the system as it is cannot, the center cannot hold or whatever that is. So it's going to break and then be rebuilt. Education is going to break. Certification is going to break. Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions? Any comments? I don't want to leave out the audience. Any comments? No, so far still digesting. Oh, there you go. There's someone there. Yeah.
Thank you for the talk. I just wonder how important it is for you to contextualize your work to the audience. Let's say the audience comes in, walk in, without coming to the talk. Does it matter to you that your key message gets conveyed?
Yeah, no, I think all these years I haven't done much to explain anything. I just put my work out there with a little bit of textual, contextualization. So in a way, I'm ambivalent about that. Like when work is well described by the artist or at the time of its delivery, it gets closed in, meaning gets closed. But my tendency is to do that, and so it's like, I don't know. So in this case, like what I have done now, it's like 30 years later, it's the first time I'm going so deep into all of that. I think that's nice. I'm happy with that. But actually, to be honest, at that time, I wouldn't have even had the capacity to articulate all these things. It was just coming out in that way. And I think probably I did explain it to the extent that I understood it myself, at that time. So yeah, it's a difficult one. Like sometimes you go to an exhibition and you see the didactic panel, and assuming it's right, quite often it's not. Like, okay, even my work here, the slide, like the video piece, it's not quite exactly what's there because I haven't given it. Somebody has tried to explain it. So it's that thing that you said again, it has to find its meaning out there, and then artists can contribute a little bit. Usually you have to get it in an exhibition, right? Nobody's going to take your work if they don't get it. They're just turning through like this. So you need your blurb. And then that blurb goes on the wall. And so it kind of is a problem. Ideally, people get it, get something without you having to say anything. But not...
Or you have the art critics.
Yeah, you have the art...
Which Malaysia doesn't have many.
Yes,
yet.
That's right. That's another story.
That's a whole different discussion on its own.
This is very interesting, actually. I found it very good and very honest. When you say at that time when you do it, you yourself don't know, So I think many artists don't even dare to say that, isn't it? I mean, to be so honest and saying sometimes it is really intuitive and only through reflection over time, like you said, only now you know. And that is, I think, why it's very important that young people go and study art history and art critics. And I would so much appreciate if Malaysia has more people, young people, who go into the art and not just making money, everything money-related studies. So I think this is very needed in Malaysia.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I feel that is something that there are efforts, there are publications, there are writers, but definitely the mediation between the market and the collective narrative, right? So you have something like a national institution. This is the postmodern question again, in a way. You have the national narrative, of the 70s, 80s, which was constructed, brick by brick, like Borbodo by, Syed Ahmad Jamal and Ismail Zain and Pierre Dasa and Kanaga. And in a way, it's an artifice. It's something based on the politics of the moment and nationalism. Okay. Now you have the postmodern moment. People are breaking that up and doing different things, and it's a lot of theory, a lot of orang asing are creating the frameworks now in the 80s and 90s. Fukuoka, Asia Pacific Triennial, Gwangju, curators all getting into the action of telling a more regional or global story. Malaysian narrative, that earlier one is getting shrunk. Okay, never mind. This is also interesting. Can fight a bit for a while, and then suddenly I went away. Maybe it's because I left. And I came back, and now all the art dealers and collectors are bermaharaja lela. Maaf ya, minta maaf pada balai, tapi kurang berkesan. And then di tengah-tengahnya kosong. As you said, not enough reward for critical writing. Who's going to pay me $5,000 to write an article? Unless it's a collector or a dealer trying to sell a project, you know. Where's the independent institution paying me because they think I have some ideas, free and unattached, that I want to write? Give me something worth doing it. Otherwise, I go and pay and I can sell also.
Yeah. But also look at the education. I mean, look at the education here in Malaysia. I mean, do they teach them to be critical? I don't think so, isn't it?
Depends lah. I mean, I think I think we have. I mean, I taught in Unimas for 7 years, so I don't know exactly what's going on everywhere. But I think to build the initial narrative, they had to be so critical of all the stuff that was stuffed down our throats, right? So the critical tradition. I mean, Piyadasa, crazy critical. We have that tradition, but somehow in the postmodern moment, in the neoliberal moment, in the globalization moment of art, right? The national institution went down, and of course Singapore came up like a Angkor Wat, right? And so, like from the top tower, like all these little things, they're just like falling apart. So there's a geopolitical issue here.
But also look at the politics. I mean, do people really speak up? What has happened after 35? What happened? What has happened? Where are we? I can't see it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're coming from when Anwar. I remember also Anwar walking down there. We all they are very optimistic. But look at it now. And then there was this minister, where they find in his bag, what is this? I mean, 89.9. What? Not 1 million, not 10 million, 100 million. Just like that, cash. And anyone saying anything, and everyone just smiles and laughs about it, and then that's it. We go back to food, talk about food, isn't it? I mean, you can talk hours and hours about food, but who talks about politics in Malaysia? Nobody. Nobody's interested. Politics are this is them, they're up there. Nothing to do with me. I mean, I'm coming from a German background. Maybe I had too much, we had to.
Yeah, I guess you have to say there's a different way of doing the politics. I mean, it's a bad moment. I mean, it's a pretty bad moment in Germany right now too, right? So it's a bad moment everywhere in terms of politics. But the Malaysian way is kind of different. It's not direct, it's indirect. So yes, critical thinking is a Western kind of cultural trope. Our way is more discreet, equally savage, but more discreet. So yes, I think you're right. I mean, I think everybody would agree that there's something going on at this moment here that's like, it's so difficult to put your finger on it. Everybody has lost hope or doesn't even know what question to ask.
But I would like to know, you said you're also teaching in other countries, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure you have you can compare. I mean,
yeah.
Don't you find, I mean, this is really a question I would like to ask you. Don't you think that there's so much worry and to be afraid to ask questions from young people here? I mean, I wish there would be more interaction and a bit more, interaction. But
yeah, no, I mean...
They're always asking for a recipe. I mean, they're asking for...
Yeah, the difference in the young people here is that we, I mean, having been one myself, we respect our elders, right? And it's a patriarchal, feudal trope, if you like. If you look at it from the other side, the elders are men, they're penghulu to, and the father in the house, it's in our religion, it's in our way. And so our politics is different. It's also, like that. And if you look at it from the outside, it's pretty awful, but it's the reality. And we work with it. That's the thing which you can't see from the outside. I mean, I say we, but I'm not even here anymore. But there's a lot going on that you have to read in the local language, so to speak, idiomatically speaking. So I think you're right at the moment, but as a generalization, I would say that our politics here is so complex and so, I mean, the internet era, Malaysian politics is explosive. Discourse, kritikan, surat layang, everything's going on here, right? Really savage stuff. And of course, the student in class is not going to put up their hand up and say, "Sir, you're wrong." Because they respect you. They call me sir even now. Some of them. Right? So there is a cultural difference. There is definitely a change happening. I think the younger people, at least in the urban centers, seem to be different, wanting to express, but fear some of them are expressing in a vacuum or in a pocket outside the reality. Like if you remember Iran before the revolution, or Lebanon, what a liberal, progressive, so on, and then suddenly what happened, right? Because outside your garden, people are different. You've got to cross over and check it out uncondescendingly. Hopefully they do the same when they are the majority, right? So, yeah, it's a difficult moment. I'm interested, but I'm also not in touch anymore, right? I don't understand what's going on anymore, actually.
Any other comments? Any other soalan? Ada? Yeah, please. Please. Over here, Miss.
Hello, so I do have a question, but bear with me as I try to position this question. Because there's been a lot that's been laid out today. I think I'm interested to know, or in your opinion, because coming from a different time when the internet came up, and for me, in this current generation, we depend so much of our livelihoods, especially because I'm a full-time artist, and I started through the internet, and it brought me to so many different corners of my practice and people and community. But I'm also beginning to realize now, with it being so much more saturated, and I think with Malaysia being one of, I think, top 3 maybe of internet consumers, we apparently have a lot of people online, on social media especially, and as you start creating works, you realize like so much of it has to go online for you to continuously make a living or to be perceived, and your visibility is all tagged to it in your work. So it comes to a point where there's almost no degree of separation, and to a point almost your consciousness is downloaded online. So I wonder how, for us, the current generation, do we navigate this? Because it almost seems like we are also in fear for each posting that we are left behind. And for us to be offline would mean that our reach is completely goes nowhere, in fact. And by community as well, I think now more and more we're becoming so individualistic. And so with all these things that they compounded onto us, I wonder like how do we move forward? What do we do? So that would be my question.
Yeah, I think I actually am not the person to answer that because I'm not in that zone. In fact, the only reason I got Facebook, and I got it very early, is because one of my student projects in SFU CEAT was about the idea of the phenomena of like, and they made this amazing piece where it was a big huggable, I forget what it was, like something, some form that you had to hug and squeeze really hard to send your like out. Right? So they made a website, and it's like a tremendous piece. But to do it, I had to join Facebook to review it, to whatever. And then I didn't use it until Rachel told me, if you want to do something in Malaysia from over there, you better get Facebook. At that time, now I'm sure you have to get Instagram or something. But so I did, and I find it difficult actually, social media. I try to look at Instagram and to make my picture square like that. No words also to put down there. What is that? I see it happening, and I say, I better get on, and then I look at it, forget it, it's not for me. Too old already, cannot. Right? And then the new things are coming, TikTok, and so okay, interesting. What's interesting, I can't really answer your question about that immersion, but adjacent to that is, and maybe it's the answer in a way, it's the formative nature of the medium. So it shapes you. The medium shapes you, right? So if you start bending to the medium, be it a language, be it culture, be it a technological platform, then you speak in that accent, right? So, and then good or bad is another thing, right? Like, so what is that? So, but the thing is, so the builders of the platform are the ones that are shaping the culture, right? So what is it that, Zuckerberg was thinking when he created that Facebook? Well, we've seen the movie, right? We know. So and then TikTok. What's the agenda and what's the idea? What's the business model? And what is the cultural analysis that enables that to be a successful business model? Well, that's what you're caught in, right? And then if you don't like making videos, you can't join TikTok. Right? You've got to look for make your own platform. That's the answer. But the consciousness part, I think we talked about it last night, that the artist is merging with, in performance anyway, like the visual arts, performance art. So your persona is already a mask and already an artifice, and then you are projecting, this is like magic. Right? You're projecting another entity that you're putting out in the world, like a wayang dalang master with your watak. You're putting it out there, and then, the Malay, the tradition of dalang is always with the pawang. There's no dalang without pawang, except now on the stage, But when it was really happening, it's a thing where these things are forces. You have to placate. You have to be careful. If you start acting in a certain way, then that becomes you. So I think that idea of that artistic persona, that is a serious matter. Right? And then it becomes you. So if that's then mediated, and the media has a form and a power, then that's another factor to build into that. And I think for me, in a way, I have always been reticent about it. I keep my distance from that full engagement. Because even as an artist, there's a line from a Dylan song, something like, there's no success like failure, and failure is no success at all. Something like that. And in a way, early success is the worst thing can happen to an artist, because you get fixed. Best thing is late life success, which I'm still hoping for.
Coming. It's coming. It's about time. Any other questions, comments, anything? Oh, they're over here.
Hi, thank you for the talk show. I have a question. I wonder how to navigate through that question. Because just now, I think we discussed, you talk about the artwork or your creation live after you created that, and then you don't really in charge of documenting it. So there's one thing that I discussed with my artist friend, that we are very puzzled that what will happen after our creation, like it created, and what will happen after. Do we solve the problematic that we throw out in the creation, or like it never solve? And that is what puzzles us, that what's the meaning of creating, what's the meaning of making people seeing our artwork. And what I would like to ask for your opinion on this matter. What do you think about the purpose of creating?
Yes, no, I appreciate the question. And in a way, at the beginning, when I was doing these slides, I had my earlier work also in the slides, which I took out in the end, just to clarify. But my career has involved this problem from the very beginning. So my first iteration of my my artist self is as a kind of Nusantara expressionist artist, right? So Malaysian references for me would be Pago Pago, Zulkifli Dahlan, and my first gang in Malaysian art is Rias, Tunku Sabri, Shukri Lennon, and a whole bunch of people doing outside the boundaries of ITM paradigm in the 90s. So making figurative, expressive work, right? Against the grain of that time, ITM, very Islamic, geometric. So this is my first gang. I traveled all over Germany looking at Blaureiter, and before I became an artist, just German expressionism was really important to me, all the way up to Kokoschka and Munch, and I traveled to see these things in situ, and you know, I was steeped in it. And then, of course, this idea of adab and, you know, the Malaysian way and our less expressive ethos, finding a need for some kind of synthesis between our way and that Western expressiveness. And I came up with a certain technique of painting, and it was based on ikat and batik, wax weaving and resist. So totally Nusantara. Of course, my metaphysical sources are Hindu and Indian and whatever, but the actual medium was abstraction based on weaving paper and tearing it and painting wax and watercolor. So consciously referring to our regional methods. And then I packed it. I wasn't in art school yet. I just doing art on my own, stopped being a lawyer, whatever. And then I decided to go to England. I took all my paintings, went to England, very hopeful and positive and naive about the art world, about art history, about lots of things. Although I had done my own study and made my own work, I went in there and I tried to show my work in London, right? Went into just I wouldn't do it now because I'm so embarrassed, like I know how it works. But that time I don't know, I just go and say, here, I'm here, I've got my work, how about it? You know, no, not here, but your work is very interesting, why don't you try there? No. In the end, they all directed me to the ILHAM Gallery, which is a big gallery in Marchmont Street in central London. It was at the time. And yeah, I got this sense, okay, it's Indian, South Asian art gallery. I looked it up, it's great history, important people had been there setting it up. Yeah, good. I got a two-man show there early on, right? Without going to Goldsmiths, nothing yet, and great success. But they couldn't help but see my work as South Asian. I am South Asian, but my work is not. My nationality is not. My references are not. But the contextualization made my gateway to success just by that circumstance. So I had who knows what would have happened. Maybe I would have never got another show. But I refused to take that up. I don't want that. And I rethought it, and those images that I showed of the first work I did after I gave up painting was, sorry, much further.
Yeah.
Coming, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are Angkor and Borobudur temple plans done by French architects, remodeled into some kind of fractal. So again, weaving, installations of weft and warp weaving with ikat idea of, marking, sticking the patterns, architectural paper patterns down a certain position, and then only weaving weft and warp between two different systems, right? So I wanted to gain control of the meaning of my work. Exactly your question. I didn't want to make work and be contextualized. No, that's me. And I'm not saying that's better than somebody who doesn't mind whatever. I'm making my work. You do whatever you want, also can what. And the best artists are like that. Right? But for me, no. I need to have it my way, at least before I let it go. After I let it go, I don't mind what, So this is the path that led me to Goldsmiths and then to this work. So I hope that's kind of what you said. The legacy is one thing, but that immediate moment of release, I do feel the artist, I feel I should have some say over the interpretation, the meaning.
Thank you for the. I think I understand the contextualization as an. I studied fine art, and then it's we really want to gain control of what we convey in order to maybe solve some of our what we thrown out to audiences and people, but then it kind of like we also puzzle that what's the meaning of throwing out things, like for example, you created this and then what happens after? Does it matter? Like, does it matter to the artist, or does it matter more to the audiences, or does it matter more bigger ways? Like, does it matter to the world or the society? Is it important that an artist should consider that?
Yeah, again, we've just done, to continue this story and move on to that. Jane and I have just been for the first time to Borobudur and Angkor, and finally, I've actually been to the places which I modeled, and so that's just an aside on the way to say that in Jogja, on the way to Borobudur, we visited the Afandi Museum. Jane's wearing the T-shirt, actually. And of course, Afandi built his own museum before he died, and thank God for that, right? Because now we can go and see it. And he decided to do the work that maybe nobody else was doing for him, right? And then we visited Heri Dono, who's like, and he's building a massive archive and exhibition space of his work, and open to the public already by appointment. And it's fine, artists can do that, right? I'm not going to do it. Roopesh might do it for me if I push him hard enough.
Yeah. Maybe, that's a good note to end. So maybe just to answer your question, since I'm being mentioned, I think one of the satisfying thing for me is for me to find my hero, right? I needed somebody as a point of reference. I needed someone to inspire me. I needed guidance so I know what I'm doing and where I'm going. And sometimes I just need a sparring partner, somebody where I can have discussion and discourse and just exchange of thoughts and things like that. So one of the good thing, right, and I did this very early on when I was doing my MA. I made the effort to go up and visit Ranjan in Vancouver. And at that point, I think what was truly rewarding, I believe, for you is like to have somebody acknowledge and recognize the significance of his work. And I believe that is something that very precious as an artist, and I understand that now after many years how important it is, somebody acknowledging and recognizing and coming after you and really seeking your advice and knowledge and things like that. So that is I believe that's much more important because you are impacting someone's life. You're shaping someone's thoughts than the works itself. For me, at least, I find it after many years reflecting.
Of course, what he's very politely not mentioning, he did the same thing with Hassan.
Yes.
So actually, Roopesh is the ideal disciple. What every guru is looking for. Yeah, because he came to me. He did it with Hasnul, I know. He came to us and Berguru separately And then he brought us together in a show in Singapore.
I tried. At least that's what I tried. And so in that sense, for me, I feel like, that's the impact that one could leave, a sort of a legacy in the world in that sense. So in that sense, in a way, it's also an acknowledgement of me saying I'm grateful for the sort of things that you have done, Ranjan. And also, of course, Hasnul, both of you have become an inspiration for me in my way of thinking and approaching. And also, just adding a bit on that, I also believe that's where I inherit my criticality, because I am with someone who's critically questioning me and challenging me in terms of my thinking and what I'm doing. And I don't believe I get that in a mass lecture classroom. I get that one-to-one when I meet somebody and they are critical. You get that passed on, because you're trained in that way. You are forced to think in that way. And that's an important sort of experience and learning path, I believe. At least for me, it was. And that might be lacking. I don't know. That's something else.
Well, I think actually that's probably not the common experience. You like always got the teacher's pet type that goes forward. Like, even on the tour in Borobudur, one girl will go and talk to the tour guide, right? And then the others will just walk. So who is making the effort, right? And who is okay? You can make the effort, but don't interest the teacher. Also God.
Also God. Yes.
Right?
That's also
So when there's a meaningful connection, I mean, I have that experience with Piyadasa. I have that experience with my granduncle who wrote on Ananda Kumarasamy. And that was not me going to him. I mean, he was just there in our family. So that idea that there's somebody there who's doing something that you look up to or that you're interested in, that you can connect with, I think is really important. And actually, back to the social media, this era, I wonder if that's still available in the same way. If everybody is, doing stuff on media platforms, then the space to engage and connect. During COVID, it's amazing to continue teaching and so on, but you certainly felt the lack, I did anyway, of human engagement and having its consequence on the education. So this age of AI, people are becoming less and less significant in so many tasks. So then when, you normally go and see the doctor, you talk to the doctor. Right? Now you're going to see the AI and what? Talk to the AI? Or after see the AI, go and see the doctor who's menganggur di rumah? Or what? Right? You won't have time to do that. So if you don't have, if you go out to check out in Vancouver, you have the choice of 3 long queues in a human till or 50 checkout, barcode checkout, right? And it's more efficient, but that person is there, It's kind of a shame not to engage with people, right?
Yeah. So on that note, thank you, Ranjan, for making the effort. Thank you, Ilham. Thank you, Rahil. Thank you for all the team putting this together. Once again, it's an honor to have you with us. It's always exciting to have our conversation. So just a quick plug-in. If you want to read, I think they can get Barahati Bahang Jiwa, some of Ranjan's writing. Also, please have a look at Relocation's catalog. The work is extensively documented, and there's also writings by him. And also the current catalog for this show, the 90s, also consists of your writing.
And worth mentioning, if I haven't already, that the presentation here is a sort of articulation of the essay, which is more in depth, and it's in the catalog for this show.
Thank you again for making out.